The last thing I remember was the weight of the last crate of Dungeness crabs slipping from my grip. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I thought it was still the same day, that maybe I'd just passed out for a minute. But the tubes in my arms, the smell of antiseptic, and the slow beeping of machines told a different story. The nurse said I'd been out for 3 days. A brain aneurysm, massive and nearly fatal. If the deckhand hadn't called an ambulance so fast, I wouldn't be here. I lay there in that hospital bed, feeling like I was floating outside of my own body. 42 years old, tough as barnacles, and the sea nearly took me down on dry land. I had a foggy memory of being lifted into the ambulance, but I didn't remember the pain. Just a cold rush, then stillness. The doctor explained everything. They performed emergency surgery. I'd need weeks, maybe months, to recover. No fishing, no heavy lifting. Just rest. He said it like I had a choice. I didn't have family close by. Just Elise. Elise. When I finally got my phone, there was one message from her. No calls. No, how are you? Just a screenshot of our shared investment account. Zeroed out. Below it, a message in that clipped tone I knew too well. I earned this after all you put me through. That was it. I stared at the screen for a long time. No rage. No confusion. Just a numb sort of emptiness. Like the part of me that should be panicking had shut off completely. All I could manage in response was a thumbs-up emoji. I don't know why. Maybe because it was easier than words. The nurse thought I was joking. Everything okay? She asked. I just nodded. What was I supposed to say? That while I was dying, the woman I lived with for nearly a decade cleaned me out like I was already dead. Later that night, I stared at the ceiling of that room while machines whispered around me. I tried to cry, but nothing came. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even shocked. Just tired. Like I'd been waiting for this in some dark corner of my mind for years. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just recovering from surgery. I was waking up into a different life, one where Elise was gone, the money was gone, and the only thing I had left was whatever came next. 2 days after I got discharged, I called Nate. We hadn't talked in years. Not because of a big fight or anything, just time, distance, the usual. He was my cousin on my dad's side. Grew up together in the same stretch of woods outside Eugene. But after high school, we took different tracks. I hit the docks and started chasing crab and tuna. He went into auto work and stayed landlocked. Nate, I said, my voice still hoarse from the breathing tube. I need a place to lay low for a bit. There was a pause. Then, yeah, of course, man. What's going on? I'll explain when I get there. I need it quiet. His voice softened. Got a spare room. Come whenever. I could have cried right then, but I didn't. Just whispered a thank you and hung up. Astoria is not a big place. Nate's shop was just off the main drag, tucked behind a gas station and a dying strip mall. I pulled up slow in a borrowed car from a buddy on the docks. My head throbbed. My legs felt like sandbags. But I made it to the front door. Nate opened it before I even knocked. Still wearing the same oil-stained denim jacket I remembered from 10 years ago. Jesus, Vince. You look like hell. Feel worse, I muttered. He clapped a hand on my back, gentle. Come on in. The house was small, neat, but lived in. Old beer signs on the wall. A chipped coffee table with car magazines stacked high. Nothing fancy, but it felt like shelter. Safety. He set me up in the spare room with clean sheets and an old oscillating fan. No questions. Just gave me space. That night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, I thought about Elise. We met at a food festival in Seaside. She was working a booth for some kombucha brand I'd never heard of, offering samples in little paper cups. I remember the way she laughed when I said it tasted like socks soaked in vinegar. It's good for your gut, she grinned. You need more probiotics. I'd never met anyone like her. She was loud, funny, smart in this chaotic kind of way. I was smitten fast. We moved in together after 6 months. Bought that little fixer-upper near the marina and started pooling money into an investment account like grown-ups. But somewhere along the line, that light in her eyes dimmed. She got cold. Secretive. The laughs turned into sighs. The hugs into glances. It was like living with a stranger who kept telling you everything was fine while packing their bags behind your back. I ignored the signs. Told myself I was imagining it. Told myself she just needed space. And now? Now she was gone. And so was every dime we'd saved. All of it vanished in a single swipe. No apology. No goodbye. I shifted under the blanket, my chest tightening. I wasn't just recovering from a medical scare. I was rebuilding from zero. And I had no damn clue where to start. It was a Thursday morning when the text came in. Just 2 words, from a number I didn't recognize. Saw Elise. Then, a second later. With some guy at your place. Thought you should know. I stared at it, blinking like it might change. But it didn't. Same words. Same gut punch feeling. I didn't even reply. Instead, I scrolled through old messages. Looked at pictures from last summer. The 2 of us grilling salmon behind the house. Elise in that sundress she never wore twice. Me, always behind the camera, always smiling. God, I was so blind. That day, I couldn't sit still. I hadn't slept much anyway. My legs were still weak, and I moved slow, but I needed air. So I drove to a different branch of our investment firm. Not the usual spot in Astoria. I picked one in Warrenton, figured I'd get someone who didn't know us. The advisor's name was Rachel. Mid-30s, polite, efficient. She smiled like she was ready to help with some normal question about interest rates or IRA contributions. I need to report potential fraud, I said. That wiped the smile away fast. She asked me to explain. I told her, joint account, my name on everything, medical emergency, sudden full withdrawal without consent. I showed her the hospital records I'd brought, discharge summary, procedure notes. I'd printed them out the night before, hands shaking while the ink dried. Rachel nodded slowly. Mr. Mercer, I'll be honest. Since it was a joint account, and unless you can prove she acted while knowing you were incapacitated, this might be tough. I'm not trying to put her in prison, I said. I just want to start the process. And I did. Signed the paperwork. Filed the fraud alert. Left with a folder full of forms and a stomach full of acid. On the drive back, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't punch the steering wheel or blast the radio. I just sat there, feeling empty. Back at Nate's, I told him everything. He leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. You sure you want to go through with this? It'll be a slog. I'm sure, I said, because it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about all the things I'd ignored. The sudden phone password changes, the new email accounts, the business trips that never added up. All those little red flags I swallowed like gravel. Turns out, when someone shows you who they are, you shouldn't wait until you're lying in a hospital bed to believe them. And I finally did. The next morning, I called Carol. She used to be my dad's lawyer back in the day. Sharp, no nonsense. The kind of woman who wore boots to court and didn't flinch when opposing counsel tried to pull fast once. We hadn't spoken in years, but when I left her a voicemail, she called back in 20 minutes. You sound like shit, she said. I feel worse. Want to tell me what the hell's going on? So I did. I laid it out in plain terms. The aneurysm, the joint account, Elise's disappearing act, the message she left behind, the fraud alert, the suspicion she'd been planning this for a while. Bring me everything, Carol said. Medical records, bank statements, timeline, and any messages she sent you. I'll build the case. I was back at her office the next day. She poured us both burnt office coffee and flipped through the files like she was thumbing a murder weapon. Her expression didn't change until she hit the screenshot Elise sent, the zeroed-out balance, and that smug little note. Carol read it out loud. I earned this after all you put me through. Jesus, that'll go over great in court. She laid out the plan, strategic divorce filing, including emergency financial protection due to my medical incapacity. Fraud was harder to prove in a joint account, but the timing, right after a near-fatal surgery, worked in our favor. Judges don't like vultures, she said, underlining something on a form. And right now, she looks like one. That gave me a flicker of hope. Not much, just enough to keep breathing. Afterward, I drove back to Nate's and called the number Carol had given me. A private investigator named Dom recommended. Discreet. Expensive, but worth it. Dom answered on the third ring, his voice low and matter-of-fact. Carol said you need eyes on someone. I need proof, I said. Something that'll hold up in court. He didn't ask for backstory. Just names, addresses, dates, habits. I told him about Elise. Her new routine. The house she was still living in. The one I'd paid off 5 years ago. I gave him Greg's name too. My crew chief. The guy who'd always been like a brother. Dom took it all down without comment. I'll be in touch. Later that night, Elise texted me for the first time in weeks. Elise, can we meet? Just to talk. Please. I stared at the screen. Did she know? Had she caught wind that I'd lawyered up? I didn't reply. Just hit read and left it alone. She texted again the next day. Elise, I didn't want it to be like this. Still, I said nothing. I'd already given her years of explanations, of patience, of money, of trust. This time, I was done talking. Now it was my turn to make the move. And I wasn't aiming to talk, I was aiming to win. Dom called me 5 days later. Got something you're gonna want to see, he said. I met him in the parking lot of a diner out in Gerhardt. He handed me a manila envelope. No small talk. Just facts. Started watching the house Monday. She's not alone. I opened the envelope. Inside were photos, time-stamped. Elise stepping out of the front door, laughing. Not by herself, with Greg. My crew chief. The guy I'd worked beside for 10 years. The guy who visited me in the hospital and said, hang in there, brother. Dom kept talking, like he was reciting weather data. They were at a motel in Lincoln City for 3 nights last week. 2 separate charges to the same credit card, hers. Matching dates, same room number. Here's the bank statement. He handed me another sheet. I looked down and saw the name, Coastal Pines Lodge. $487.34. Twice. Dom pointed to another paper. There's also these transfers. From your old joint account to Greg's personal checking. 500 here, 900 there. Regular pattern over a couple of months. Started just before your aneurysm. My stomach turned. This wasn't just a fling, Dom said. It was coordinated. I didn't respond. Just stared at the photos, Greg with his arm around her, Elise smiling like none of this meant anything. I thought about all the times I trusted that man. The extra shifts I gave him when his kid needed braces. The times he crashed on my couch during storm delays. The fishing trips. The beers. The way he talked about loyalty like it was a religion. I'd been stupid. No, I'd been loyal. And they'd gutted me like a salmon on the deck. Later, back at Nate's, I laid the photos on the kitchen table. Nate didn't say anything at first. Just stared. Jesus, he muttered finally. They planned this. I nodded slowly. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was strategic, timed, efficient, like a hit job with a paper trail. Whatever heartbreak I had left hardened into something colder. Not rage that came and went. What stayed was resolve. They didn't just leave me. They hunted me. And now, I was done licking my wounds. It was time they felt what it was like to lose everything. Carol didn't waste time. She filed for an emergency financial injunction and kicked off preliminary divorce proceedings that same Monday. The court date was set for the end of the week, fast-tracked due to the medical circumstances and the active fraud alert on the joint account. In the courtroom, Elise showed up wearing her favorite performance, a black dress, hair perfectly done, not a trace of guilt on her face. Her lawyer, some hotshot from Portland in an overpriced suit, came in trying to spin the narrative. Said I had a history of being secretive with our finances, that I was volatile before the aneurysm, and that Elise had simply taken control of the money to protect their joint assets while I was unavailable. Carol stayed seated, calm as ever, then slid a folder across the table. Medical records, she said, including the surgeon's note that confirms my client was in critical care when the withdrawals were made. Here's also the timeline of account activity, which shows multiple large transfers, including several to the account of Gregory Boone, someone not listed on any financial or business documents connected to this marriage. The judge looked through it quietly. Then came the screenshots, Elise's message to me, the one with the drained account, and that smug little note. I earned this after all you put me through. Her lawyer tried to object. Said the message was emotionally charged and inadmissible as legal proof of intent. Carol didn't flinch. It's not about intent, she said, flipping another page. It's about timing. Every dollar was pulled when my client was unconscious and recovering from surgery. That's not managing finances. That's exploitation. Elise finally spoke up. He's making this look worse than it was. We were having problems before he got sick. The judge turned to her. Were you also having problems when you transferred money to Mr. Boone's account while Mr. Mercer was hospitalized? Her mouth opened, then shut. It was the first time I saw her mask crack. The judge didn't issue a final ruling that day. This was just the beginning. But he issued an emergency freeze on all of Elise's accounts. No transfers. No sales. No funny business. And he granted Carol's request to place a hold on the house and boat, pending the outcome of the divorce. You'll have to disclose all assets, the judge told her. If anything moves, it will be considered contempt. Elise nodded stiffly, her whole body tensed. And just like that, the balance shifted. For the first time since I collapsed on that dock, I wasn't the one in the hospital bed or the victim on the paperwork. I was the one holding the hammer. As we walked out, Carol clapped me on the shoulder. That was the first shot, she said. Now let's see how fast they start scrambling. She wasn't wrong. Later that night, Elise's social media went dark. The shared photos vanished. The status updates dried up. She stopped pretending nothing had happened. Because now, she knew it wasn't over. Not even close. By the next week, the wheels started coming off their little scheme. Greg listed his fishing boat for sale. Then his house. Both showed up on Facebook Marketplace with prices slashed low enough to scream panic. Nate sent me the screenshots. He's bleeding, he said. Fast. Elise, meanwhile, kept texting me every couple of days. Elise, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Elise, you're hurting both of us. Can't we just fix this? I never replied. Then, on a rainy Wednesday, I saw them. I was at Safeway, picking up a prescription, when I caught the sound of her voice, sharp and tense, coming from the parking lot. I stepped outside and spotted them by the cart return. Elise in a red jacket, Greg in a soaked ball cap, both arguing like they'd forgotten the world existed. You said we'd be fine, she hissed, waving a phone at him. You told me the judge wouldn't freeze the damn accounts. I didn't know he had a damn lawyer. Greg snapped. Or that Mercer would fight back at all. I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit record. Just 2 minutes. That's all I needed. Greg kicked the shopping cart in frustration. I'm not going down for this. I should have just stayed out of it. Elise rubbed her temples, her voice dropping low. We still have options. You can't disappear now. That was all I needed. I turned and left before they spotted me. Back at Nate's, I played the video for him. That's what Carol's been waiting for, I said. And she agreed. When I sent it to her, she called me back within the hour. This proves intent, she said. She knew what she was doing. And so did he. The next day, Elise's lawyer sent a letter to Carol's office. A cease and desist with a warning. They were aware I was harassing Elise and Mr. Boone in public. Carol just laughed. Let them try to make that stick, she said. You recorded in a public space. No threats. Just a real-life confession with a grocery store soundtrack. She filed a motion to submit the video into evidence. Within 48 hours, we had confirmation. Greg had skipped town. No forwarding address. His phone disconnected. Word on the docks was that he sold everything and took off toward Alaska. Elise? She stayed behind, but her panic showed. More texts. This time longer. Apologetic. Rambling. Elise, I didn't want it to happen like this. I thought we were over. I thought you didn't care anymore. Elise, you promised we'd be okay. That we were building something better. I read them all. Didn't respond to a single one. She wanted me to believe this was a mistake. That she was just swept up. That Greg had pulled the strings. But the withdrawals, the motel rooms, the lies, they weren't mistakes. They were choices. And now, they were unraveling. One by one. The courtroom was packed. Carol said it was unusual for a divorce hearing to draw a crowd, but this wasn't your average case. Word had spread, among old friends, dockworkers, even a few folks from the investment firm. Everyone had a theory, a side, a whispered opinion. But only two people really mattered that day. Me and Elise. She sat across the aisle from me in a dark green blazer, eyes low, mouth tight. Her lawyer looked more tired than smug now. Greg was nowhere to be found, of course. Officially out of state. Unofficially, probably hiding in a fishing camp somewhere in Sitka. The judge entered, and the room went still. Carol opened with a timeline, a clean, detailed rundown of our finances, shared investment accounts, house equity, the fishing boat, the timeline of my hospitalization, and the transactions Elise made during that time. All of it backed by bank records and notarized medical files. Then she dropped the video from the Safeway parking lot. The room tensed. The judge watched it twice. Elise's voice clear. You said we'd be fine. Greg's reply. I didn't know he'd fight back. Elise's lawyer stood and tried to paint her as confused, emotionally overwhelmed, acting out of desperation. He said the marriage had been strained for years, that I'd withdrawn emotionally, and that Elise simply made decisions based on what she believed she was entitled to. Carol wasn't having it. She emptied their account while Mr. Mercer was under sedation following emergency brain surgery, she said, slow and deliberate, and transferred funds to another man she was secretly involved with. That's not desperation. That's calculation. Elise kept her eyes on the table. Her lawyer approached us during the break, offered a settlement, a 50-50 split of remaining assets, and no public airing of further, embarrassing material. Carol turned to me. I shook my head. We went back in. The judge issued his ruling that afternoon. Elise was to receive minimal assets, no claim to the house, the boat, or any remaining investments. The judge awarded me full ownership of both and ordered that Elise repay a portion of the withdrawn funds over time. Court-mandated debt schedule. Monthly payments for at least 5 years. A lien placed on her vehicle. Any attempt to transfer assets before repayment would be considered a violation. Carol closed her folder with a quiet nod. Elise stared forward like her brain had gone offline. Not crying. Not protesting. Just done. When the judge adjourned, I stood up slowly. My legs were steady now. Strong. Outside the courthouse, Nate was waiting for me, leaning against his truck. It's over, he said. I nodded. But it wasn't victory I felt. It was release. The rope they'd wrapped around my neck for months, maybe years, had finally snapped. And I could breathe again. It's been 6 months since court. The boat's mine now, technically and legally, but I haven't taken it out once. Not because I can't. I just don't want to. The sea doesn't call to me the way it used to. Not after everything. Not after waking up in a hospital bed and realizing the person I trusted most had already written me off. I bought a small cottage just outside Astoria, right up against the bay. Nothing flashy, 2 bedrooms, squeaky floors, a stove that groans in the morning. But it's mine. No shared names. No old ghosts. I started a seafood shop a few blocks from the marina. Just me and a walk-in cooler. Nate helped build the shelving. We keep it simple. Fresh halibut, smoked salmon, some crab in season. No pressure. No storms. Customers come in, chat for a bit, leave smiling. I like it that way. I see Nate most days. We'll grab a beer after closing, sit outside on folding chairs and talk about dumb things, boats, women, why the Seahawks can't get it together. It's easy with him. No pretending. No tiptoeing around the wreckage. I've reconnected with some family, too. My niece came by the shop last week with her kid. I hadn't seen either of them in years. You look better, she said. Like Lighter. I guess I am. Elise tried texting again. Twice, maybe 3 times. Nothing angry. Just lines like, I hope you're okay, or, I really did love you, in my own way. I didn't respond. I don't hate her. Not anymore. Hate takes energy, and I'd rather put that into packing shrimp and fixing the old neon sign out front. But I don't forgive her either. What she did doesn't get erased with time. In my nightstand, there's an old box. Inside is a single photo, me and Elise, smiling on the deck of the boat, sunburned and happy. It stays in that box, not because I want to remember her, but because I want to remember what I missed. The signs. The silences. The way I convinced myself it was love when it was really something else. I sleep better now. I don't check my phone at night. I don't keep looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next hit to come. This life, it's not grand. It's not glamorous. But it's mine. And finally, that's enough.